In 2005, I was just 19 when I volunteered to go to Iraq and look for roadside bombs. My service changed my life. After 20 years, I want to help veterans tell their stories. Grab your whoopee, sit back and relax. I'm your host, Joseph Yankton, and this is Rank and File.
Thank you for being my guest. Okay. And we are shooting at the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 756 in Devils Lake, North Dakota, my hometown. And my guest today is Richard Yankton, also my dad. And he's a Navy veteran. He served 9 years active duty. You enlisted in 58, got out in September of 67. And you got to witness some notable things. You got to see Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy was assassinated during that time, and you had a tour to Vietnam. So I know we're on limited time, but I think we can start in high school, or wherever you want to start.
Well, after I graduated from Washington Indian School, is when I went to Culbertson, Montana. Went to high school there. And I spent the majority of my time not on the Spirit Lake Reservation, which is my home reservation. Majority of it was off reservation in different areas, and even on different reservations, like Fort Peck in Montana. But during those times, there were trials. And I felt like I didn't have a choice. If I was going to better myself, the best way to do it was to get off the reservation, and I did that by joining the service. While I was in high school, that's where we had our recruiters come in. All four of them, because there was Air Force, the Marines, Navy, Army, and, well, the Coast Guard was later. Four of us guys, we decided we were going to join the service right from high school. So we went to Wilson, North Dakota, and because that's where the recruiters came from. So we walked in there, and we all hadn't decided what branch we were going to enlist in. Majority of us picked the Air Force. I picked the Air Force. And after we talked to the recruiters there for a while, come to find out, there was a little over a 6-month waiting period before we could even get into boot camp with the Air Force. So it just so happens that the door across the hall had United States Navy written on it. So I left Air Force door and walked in the Navy door. And that's how I became a Navy sailor, if you will.
How much swimming time did you have between?
None.
I mean, Spirit Lake, Devils Lake area has a lot of water, but it was a lot lower than when you were a kid.
Oh, yes.
You were born in 1940.
Swimming or water wasn't even my idea. Navy, I just had a blind attitude or a blind vision of what I was going to be doing. I had no idea that what department of the Navy I'd be in, but I knew I was going to be serving my country. The Korean War was just over. Vietnam was a real good possibility that they're going to be sending us guys over there. So,
what did your parents think?
Well, my mom wasn't around to say anything, but my father says, you're not old enough. I was 17, so he signed for me. So.
And you guys signed for me when I was 17.
Yep. So that's how I got it. Anyway, from Williston, they had to go to Fargo, North Dakota, where the receiving station was. And went through a full exam. went through the questionnaires, did everything they wanted, and then that's where I got sworn in. It was 8/8/58. August 8th, 1958. And from there I got on a train, cleaned across, went to the West Coast, all the way down to San Diego. San Diego, California. That's where I was, went through boot camp.
And that was the first time you were that far away from reservation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fresh off the res.
And believe me, it was different. I wondered sometimes if I made the right decision, or if there was any decision at all.
What was your like? So, how did you get your gear? How did they receive you? When did they shave your head?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have long hair?
Yeah. We from the train depot, there was Navy vehicles, like buses. So there must have been about 30 of us that come from the Fargo area. And we got on the buses, and then we went. I got lost. I didn't even know where I was at. Then we got to the receiving part, and where we stripped down, and then we put on Navy clothes, and then we went through a line where they gave us all our dungaree shirts, underwear, cap, and they issued us not a full sea bag, partial sea bag. And from there we went to another receiving part where we put all our gear together, and then we signed some additional documents. I forget what it was. One of them was, "What do you like to do?" Go home. Then from there, that's when they took us to the barbershop. Now the funny guy was one of the guys. He says, "How do you want it done?" "Oh, a little bit off to the side." He went, gone. All my hair was gone.
Did you have long hair?
Yeah. Well, not all the way long. It was longer than usual. But we got shaved down there. Then from there they took us to the barracks. We were assigned quarters in the barracks.
So this would have been like World War II barracks.
Oh yeah.
Trained,
Oh yeah.
So what was those buildings? Was it asbestos walls?
No, they were huge rooms, long, like a barracks, and it was lined with bunks on each side. Had your foot locker, had one little small closet, and in that closet each door on that. There was 3 of them. And each door had 2 little drawers. And then the rest of it, you were taught how to fold each garment.
Your underwear and your socks.
And socks. How they were twisted and tucked, and how they were stored in that locker. Yeah. I went to one, we had an inspection, opened the lockers up, stood at the end of the bar. Bunk. A couple of them, their bunks were torn along. And I survived. He went to the guy beside me. He had the bottom locker. He all got pulled out and dumped. He had to redo it. So, but anyway, and then when we, the laundry day, this is the fun part. There was a line, and we had to hang if you washed the dungarees, your pants, fold them over that line, and we had some little yarn, string, or if you want to call it, and we got the corner, wrapped around, and tied them up. We did that with each garment hanging on after we did the laundry. So there was a special way to do that. The part that was interesting, though, basically was we were went to like an Olympic-sized pool. It was a huge building. Had to be at least 50 feet high inside. And there was jump off points. And we were all told if you get assigned to a carrier, you're going to be standing on the deck up here. If something happens, you got to jump. You're going to learn how to jump. And how are you going to fold your legs, put your arms this way, so then when you hit the water, your arm's going to catch the water, not your nose. And then, of course, you cross your legs for a good reason.
No animal.
Yeah. And that was a good 50 feet, 60 feet in the air. And then we went through the swimming. Everybody had to swim this pool, down, back. And I made it, surprisingly. And we had one guy that didn't make it. He went all the way down, come halfway down, halfway back, and he went straight to the bottom.
Well, you were pretty athletic in high school. You were in sports.
Oh, yes. All of basketball, football, track, baseball. Yeah.
So, how tall were you when you graduated?
5'8".
5'8". And how much do you think you weighed?
Pardon?
How much do you think you weighed when you got in?
Oh, when I went in, it's 136 pounds.
Whew. That's okay. I was 6'4" and I weighed 142 going in, so I was way underweight.
Yeah, and then when I got discharged, I was still 5'8", but I weighed 152 pounds. Yeah.
So coming, I just lost my train of thought for a second. Going back to the rolling the shirts and stuff, did the discipline portion of it, that didn't surprise you nothing because you were part of the Indian school system,
Yep.
and
Same thing.
it was all systems and government ran. So it was. Did you notice any of the other guys that were resisting the conformity of being neat and doing things certain ways?
Some guys there that had no idea that there was even such a discipline. They were pampered people. If they had to go out on their own, they'd never made it. And I had that when I was in board ship. I was the E6 in charge of the engineering area, and I had 80 guys in that part of the barracks and everything. Well, not barracks. What do they call it? I forgot what they call it now. But our quarters. Yeah, engineering quarters. So out of all those guys, every day you reminded some of them, you tore their beds apart, you tore their lockers out, redo it.
Because if you can't do the little things right, there's no business giving you responsibility for the big things.
Yeah. And there were some guys in there that, were on top of everything. They were top guys. And it showed in their work and their responsibility.
So the 50s, that was like the muscle car scene, the big band era, the swing.
Well, the muscle cars was later in the 60s.
60s, okay.
Yeah.
But what was the mood going into the military? Did you guys think you were going to war? Like, was the Navy sort of like a safe choice? Was this idea of the Cuban Missile Crisis and coming up?
When I when I was in boot camp, we had to go through all this training.
You would have had Korean War.
We did
sailors.
We did more marching and formation marching than anything else. And when you're down there in California, San Diego, we got what we call the Granger. It's all concrete blacktop. And there was 82 companies and there was almost 90 guys in every company. That's how many were down there for that 3-month session of boot camp. And we all had to take turns going through. They had a couple of ships tied on pier, and we went and trained on them, on those training ships. Is what they're called. One of the USS Never Sail.
So this is weird to say, but when I left the reservation to go to Iraq, it was kind of, I almost felt like it was like a privileged thing. Like, I'm just happy to be off the res. Like,
Yep.
And there's other guys who are like, oh, this place sucks. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, your disposition. So what was your attitude? Were you more optimistic than more bunch of your other sailors? Like, did you have were you fun to be around?
There was a few of them, yeah. Right now, the first thing that comes to my mind was we had a group come up from Texas, and they were all reserves. And if there was any pompous people, it was them.
Texans?
Texans. Oh my goodness, them guys were, I'm better than you. And they tell it to your face. Yeah. And half of them didn't know how to fold their skivvies. But the ones we got along with, all of us that were in there, if you were up from the northern part of the country, like the Dakotas, Minnesota, Montana, you know, those people.
Midwest people?
Yeah, we gravitated towards one another because we knew what he knew, and he knew what we knew.
Because your parents all survived the Great Depression. Your parents are...
Oh, my great parents, yeah. The Depression was in the 30s, so I really didn't know nothing about it except reservations were controlled and manipulated by the government. Yeah, we didn't have any
You had
choice.
your fresh citizenship in 1924.
Yep. When McKinley signed that act, that we became citizens.
Indian Citizenship Act.
You know, and when you read that act, they said the reason why they've given us to let us become citizens of the United States is because we had the willingness to defend our country and fight for our God-given rights, if you will. Because because of World War I, they had more Indians who were overseas than any other group.
And that's still true today.
Yep.
Yeah, more of us, more natives out of any other. Yeah, so it's based on like ratios of all their groups. But yeah, out of all the different cultures that comprise the United States military, natives are the #1 volunteers.
Yep. And for that reason, he said, McKinley said that we know at Congress, we know that their willingness to protect our country, they'll be good citizens. You know.
If we were taught a little more financial literacy in the Indian schools, I think we got a late start on that as a culture.
Yeah. Our high schools, Indian high schools like Flandreau and Stefan, and most of them were run by parochial Catholic schools like Stefan, and there's a lot of people in Fort Totten here that have gone to that. They were there at Stefan, and when I was before I left Wabaton, my next Indian school was going to be Flandreau. I'd already been down there and checked the school out. But before I got to go down to Dakota High School, my stepmom and my dad come down to Wabaton, picked me up and took me to Montana.
So, so you mentioned Catholic. Were you practicing Catholic when you joined the Navy? Did you go to chapel? Did you go to service or mass?
Practicing? I don't know. In my heart, I knew I was a Catholic. Yeah. And Catholicism changed for me when I went forward and accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior. And that was at the Lowell Nostrum Crusade. And basically my life changed again. You know, joining the service was a big change for me from leaving the reservation and going out into the open, which was everything was strange. And going to California is even stranger. There's some weird people. Yeah.
What was the gas prices when you got it in '58?
I can remember in my younger days, there was they had a gas war in Fargo, North Dakota, and it was 8 cents a gallon.
Oh Jesus! Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's,
So, but at the time that I joined the service, it was probably, of course, I didn't drive very much, but back then there was, maybe about 14 cents, 16 cents a gallon. Yeah. And then after I got out,
what was your starting pay? What was your first paycheck? What did that look like?
from the Navy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is that you got in as E1, E2?
yeah. Well, I worked before that. You know, I worked when I started working, I was 14.
No, I mean your first Navy check,
Oh my, yeah, it was $82.
and that was a paper check, and you just did the best on the ship.
Cash.
It was all cash. Oh, okay.
Yep. We all on payday. We all got them alphabetically. So guess where I'm at?
They should have spelt it right. It would have been I instead not a Y. Yeah.
And if it just so happens like $82, I got 20, you know, 80. The $2 was a $2 bill. Yeah, they paid us the $2 bills. And that one time, it was before I met Bonnie. I must have had close to $1,000 in $2 bills, and I was saving them. It's a $2 bill. That's strange, you know.
Yeah.
And being from up there in Montana, the silver dollars was another thing. And we hated silver dollars because it was so heavy. You give them $10 for a dollar item, and you get 9 silver dollars back. So and it got heavy. And we didn't. And now today, I'd like to have all of those. But that $2 bill, and then I met your mom, and later on, we needed some money. So I sure still have those $2 bills because they're worth more than $2.
Yeah.
And there were silver certificates. You know, they just weren't greenbacks.
Right.
It's written right on them, silver certificate.
So that was a monthly pay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's monthly pay.
So let's move into your first assignment, your first shift. Yeah. So you got into engineering. How long was your engineering school?
Oh. Well, when I went from boot camp, they were going to send me to radio med school because I had a high proficiency in electronics. The tests, that's what they showed. So, but for some reason, when I was going to get transferred from San Diego to, it was in California yet, for this radio med school, they changed my orders. So then I said, well, you're not going to go there. You're going to go to all the way across to Norfolk, Virginia, and you're going to go report aboard the USS Shenandoah.
East Coast.
Yeah, from West Coast to East Coast. I could have caught a ship right there, but not all the way across the United States. So when I got to Norfolk, I checked out, went aboard the USS Sierra, and the engineering officer and what was the chief petty officer of the engineering. Anyway, he was a super chief. By the way. He says, back then they had 2 blue stripes, and white meant that you was like a bosun mate, and a red meant that you was in engineering. Yeah, and mine were white, but he told me, he says, we need people down in engineering. You're going down in engineering. That's how I became an engineer. So, and then my schooling is all self-learned aboard these ships. Yeah.
So what was the Shenandoah? Or the
It was
Sierra?
a destroyer tender.
Okay.
Yeah, it was and tied up right there at that Norfolk destroyer piers.
You know what the nomenclature was?
826. I think anyway, the number is 26. I don't know. But it was tender, yeah.
And did you drive across country? Did you guys take a road trip? Was there, so when you got assigned orders to go to Norfolk,
Oh,
did you fly? Or?
no, what I did was I took a bus
Okay.
and I went down to, got to Nebraska, and there I decided, I'm going to go up see my siblings, my sister and my mom in South Dakota. So I went up. That's where I went. And seen them for
Assisted?
Yeah, I seen them for 5 days, I think. After that 5 days, then I had to move. So I got on the bus and took off again.
Do you remember how much the bus fare was?
No,
No. $10?
no, it was more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was something like almost 18 bucks. 18, 19 bucks, I think it was. The whole trip was, because I stopped in Nebraska, but from San Diego to Norfolk, the total was 68 bucks.
Almost a full month's pay
Yeah.
to go cross country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, of course, when we got transferred, we were given additional monies for travel and stuff. So anyway,
What was the food like?
aboard ship.
From Indian school food cafeteria? Because you probably had KP duty in the school.
In the service, between the Indian school and the service, I take the Indian school food. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in 61, you were on board the USS Norfolk.
Yep.
Destroyer Leader 1. Destroyer Leader class.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, you told me that you guys were the first ship to get into the blockade formation.
Mm-hmm.
And as a young kid, I was like, oh yeah, my dad. Of course, my dad's ship was the first one, like, right? And then I asked you 2 years ago, I'm like, can you tell me how that happened? And you want to lead into that story?
Oh, yeah. How we got in the blockade or into the situation of the Cuban crisis. We were down to Gitmo. And that was a training session for all kinds of ships. Destroyers, cruisers. Well, of course, it was too small for battle wagons or aircraft carriers, but they were on the outskirts. And we went down there for full training, full combat training. That's all it was. And when we were down there, we were sitting right in the harbor. And then we got word about the Cuban crisis. So while we were sitting there,
you get your real world your training,
yeah.
And then you guys get what was it called? Like, was
Well,
it a bell? Was it a siren?
No.
Speaker with a.
Yeah. The skipper was notified first by the base commander. And they told the skipper, our skipper, that we were to be sent out around to Havana harbor entrance, and we were to patrol back and forth in that area. So, but before we went, they had a barge pull in, or it was actually planes landing in Britain, and they were offloading it to trucks, and trucks brought them on the barge, and barge come up alongside. And there were missiles is what they were loading up, because we had the Azrock missile launcher on board. So they loaded those missiles. Oh God, I've never seen so many Marines standing there with their rifles. Like, I'm going to do something to that. But they offloaded all the missiles. We loaded them all on board ship. The barges cleared, and we backed out and went out of Gitmo all the way around and east, then north, and went to the Havana mouth, the Havana Peninsula, in and out. And then we patrolled back and forth. until the first Russian ship come out and they had these huge missiles. You know, they were walking on them when they had them covered, and we ordered them to uncover.
They're ICBM. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they had to reveal or to expose what was under those tires. Well, it's like taking your cup and putting it in here. Here's these trucks on board that big, huge ship. The little trucks parked on the side of them. I don't know why. But that showed you the size of those missiles. And the first ship out refused to come cover. So we just pulled out, trained our 3M70 mounts, all four of them, you know. And then they started running and uncovering the missiles. So then the ship had the capability of taking pictures and wiring them to Washington. So, but in the meantime, well, just prior to that ship coming out, I guess the president or whoever it is told them that if they don't proceed, dismantle and proceed taking the missiles out, that we were going to hit those sites.
Fire.
8 or 9 of them. It was already, and as we went out, our Azeroth launcher, all 8 missiles were set in place. And we vacated the harbor and we headed north. And we had to be 5 miles, minimum 5 miles away.
So, in the movie Battleship, it showed how the big boilers get fired up. It's like a big oil dipstick, and it gets put in the boiler, and there had to been a lot of activity in the engineering on like directions. Like, how did you guys get direction on like speed, RPM, or pressure? Because it was all.
Oh well, the skipper topside sent orders down for engineering to, fire up all 4.
Is that like a PA or is it like a?
No,
is there an indicator or phone? Okay.
Phone from there to our engineering department under in their battle stations, and the engineering officer, he could see what each boiler, each steam generator was doing, if they were capable of full power, partial power, or But anyway, he gave us the order. He says, "Okay, full, fire them up full." We generated them all up to 1,260 pounds, 1,260 pounds of pressure.
Did you guys have ear coverings? Was it really loud down there?
Oh yeah, we all had covers on, but the everything else was done by hand signal. Because couldn't hear it on there. But anyway, the main engines were notified that pressure was up, so they can, if we got the order to full power.
You had all the reserve power just waiting.
They got it. And we can get up to about 42 knots in a couple of minutes.
So while you're down there, like you're in the hull of the ship. You're in.
Yep.
What did you think was happening up top? Like, you went from back and forth. Now you guys are moving out.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Are we gonna like?
Well, the engineering officer is apprised of everything that's going on up there, because he has to know where we need full power or don't have full power, and where we're going, how we're going. So main engines and where the steam generators were, we all had to know, and we were notified what was going on.
So what would have been the engineering posture? Let's say that's right. Where if you would have had to fire missiles or fire, like what's the?
Oh well, we had to be 5 miles away, So
you could fire on the run.
Yeah. The order would have come through full power ahead. And we would put the engineering, the steam generators to max. And the engineering department just opened up their valves so that screws.
It had to have been exciting. Like you guys got trained, you were training. Now you guys are in it. Like,
yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. Like there's missiles on your ship. You're getting orders. We're moving out. Like that we're doing this. It's
We're
you know,
in the middle of it.
you were what? You were like 21? 20?
Yeah, 21.
Yeah, you're peak. Well, not peak, but
Yeah.
that's amazing stuff. And as history can tell, so Eisenhower and Kennedy were on the phone trying to figure this out.
Mhm.
Like what was the attitude when nothing was fired and sort of like, oh, okay, like
It was
kind of had to climax and go back down, right?
it was a relief that we weren't going to be in World War III. Being down there at the bottom of that ship, we still heard those jets. Because the USS, not the Enterprise, but Kitty Hawk and Forest Hawk. They were out there. We saw them before we went below. And they were along there. It was like bees coming out of a beehive. There was so many jets in the air. It was pathetic. And they flew right over the top of us, and we could hear them. And then when all of a sudden the bees went home. So, and we got to the point where it says, okay, standard speed ahead. Oh, we slowed down. We come down to 16 knots, So then we could feel the ship turning, And the whole time it was down there, you could hear them sonar pinging, for submarines, other ships. We can hear them.
And that's prime Cold War era stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's height of the spy stuff happening. And what was the chatter in engineering about the submarines?
Well, you can always tell when they pinged an object, not necessarily a submarine, another ship. We can tell when they hit one.
Could you feel it? Was it?
You can hear it more than anything else. And after that, then, of course, those sonar guys, they knew what they were at. They knew how far away it was, how fast they were going, which way they were going. So when we went back to the Havana's entrance, we resumed our position of patrol, back and forth. That's when the first ship came up, after we came back. Because satellites must have told the Russians they got satellites up there too.
So your guys' ship was picked to push the button if that was
Yeah.
pop up.
Well,
That's
you had the USS Dahlgren, that's a DLG, I forget what number she is. But there was 5 other ships besides us that had missiles. So,
you can't. Just hearing the story is exciting.
yeah.
So after all that died down, bad word phrasing, but where'd you guys port after that?
No.
You had to unload. Did you unload the missile somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
You got,
No, we went back to Gitmo.
Okay.
Yeah, after we patrolled, escorted that ship out, there was more than one ship. So and we turned around and went back, where we took pictures, transmitted the pictures to Washington. We went back and intercepted the next ship. So they had to drill, they knew what to do. They had to uncover, and we took pictures. And then when we pulled out, that's when I realized that I was topside. I wasn't supposed to be there. And I seen the USS Dahlgren, and she had these smart-looking missile launchers, and pokes up like this here. The missile comes right up, attaches, and radar takes over.
what was the Dahlgren?
Pardon?
Was the Dahlgren a destroyer?
The Dahlgren was just like we are, a destroyer leader one. We were frigates. Yeah. So it's bigger than a destroyer.
Okay.
It was a missile, a DLG. That's a guided missile ship.
And you
I
guys,
couldn't remember the number of it. But she resumed interception. And then we took off and went around, went back north, went west, and then all the way down south to the Kidmo. Then we unloaded them. This was down there on the barges. I don't know what they did. And then after that was over, we were assigned to in a blockade. We were assigned a position, so we had to go back. There was 300-400 ships from all the way around Cuba, because we had it locked in, all the way to Nova Scotia, Canada.
Was it amazing to, because like you can read about, oh yeah, we're part of the military has all these, you know, but to be there and to see all of it, was that like, okay, this is a big,
Yeah.
you know, this is a big organization. Like you saw all the ships and that had to do something to your perspective, like, you know, just
Yeah, I think what was awesome
Indian
to
from
me,
the reservation is out there in the middle of a
yeah,
possible World War III situation. Like,
yeah.
oh, that's exciting.
What was awesome to me is I seen all these other destroyers, guided missile destroyers, but when those aircraft carriers, when they went by you, now I mean we could be doing 30 knots, and that aircraft carrier just went by us like, excuse me, yeah. That was an awesome ship. Yeah.
And what was the power system to run those? It just
Well, like the Enterprise was all nuclear.
was the first nuclear.
Nuclear power. And then after that, they were all oil fired, fuel oil, just like I was on a destroyer.
How many gallons of? So how often do you have to get fueled up?
Refuel?
Mhm.
Oh, well, generally we took on our tanks held somewhere around 480,000 gallons, something like that. And then our diesel fuel tanks were all right for our engines. Maybe 20,000 gallons. And then we had fresh water. We had our distillers. They had to make fresh water, not only for us, but for the boilers. And the boilers took better, cleaner water than we took. Yeah. You know, the total liquid displacement of the USS Norfolk was almost 800,000 gallons of both fuel and water. We carried all that weight besides our armament out of 3N70s, 4 mounts, and they can pump out about 60 rounds in a couple minutes.
So you mentioned that you guys were involved in like some war games, and you painted the ship a different color when you got to.
Oh yeah, that was a little later. That's it. See, we were at Gitmo more than once. Every ship, especially the destroyers, the frontline fighters, had to go through Gitmo to prove their battle conditions.
Oh, so for the Army and the Marines, it's like a national training center. We have to go to California to qualify, and then we go out to different.
Yeah.
We had to do that before Iraq.
Yeah, for the Atlantic, Gitmo was for the Pacific, it was an island not too far off California. So all the training, all the ships, even the aircraft carriers, they go through training. And when the USS Forrestal had a power run, we were up north and close to Nova Scotia. It was up in that area. And she had to run a power section going down just on the other side of the, what they call there's a river in the ocean on the Atlantic. Mm-hmm. And there's temperature changes between, if you're sitting here and you cross that river in the ocean, you get on the other side, there could be a submarine sitting here, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't even hear it, not with sonar or anything, because it deflected the sonar rays. So a lot of times these submarines would ride that river,
Well, they're like the currents.
Yep.
Yeah, like.
Yep.
That's
But those are all, again, training points.
Mm.
We did, going north to south, we deliberately cross. Have to, because we don't know what's on the other side of that. There's a word for that. Deflection, reflection, because of temperature.
Mm.
That river is usually around 30, 40 degrees warmer than the ocean on the other side of it. So you're sitting in this temperature inversion, and then when you cross over, when you go into it, you're in a different temperature range. So it's hard to explain.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to follow.
Yeah.
Can you tell the story that I loved hearing as a kid was you guys were tracking a whale,
Yeah.
but you thought it was a sub.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
was that on the Norfolk?
Yeah. No, it was, actually, we were involved in that trace because we were called saying there was a foreign, if that was another Russian submarine.
It's so big. The whale was so big they thought it was a
In
submarine.
and out of this river transit. See? Wow. So sonar was picking it up, but it'll disappear. Pick it up, it'll disappear. Well, that whale was doing that.
So they thought that the Russians had maneuverability that good.
Oh yeah, they did.
That's
They
scary.
did, yeah. And that trench is 12 miles deep. So that's where we lost the USS Triton. When they,
Well, the
Right
thresher.
right out of the shipyards, they were going to commission her, and they took her out for a trial run. Shipfitters plus the Army, the Navy.
They were delivering it to the Navy. Yeah.
And they took it out, and they took it on a dive, and it never came back up.
Yeah. We looked that up not too long ago. That the thresher, they were delivering it to the Navy.
Yeah.
And it had like the engineers on it, and it had a small crew,
Mm-hmm.
and it went under and it never came back up.
Yep.
And said
We
so
paid,
that the new sonar that you had installed after you realized that was a whale, not a sub.
yeah,
So you had the best sonar in the Navy,
yeah.
and you guys had to go find where the
Where-
thresher lay.
Where the Triton lay. Yep. We found her scattered over about 10 miles.
That-
It
Yeah,
went
that's
down, and it wasn't an explosion, it was an implosion.
Well, if there's ways I don't want to die, that'd be one of them.
Mhm.
So in a lot of these sailor movies, Navy warfare movies, where it doesn't matter if you're the enemy sub or not, it's like knowing that those sailors, just like you're a sailor, they're sailors, experiencing that kind of death, it could happen to you.
Oh, yeah.
And just seeing like that had to be, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I always feared a torpedo hitting right where I'm sitting, coming in on the side.
So do you have any God moments where like did you guys find faith being in, experiencing fear like that? Some fear could completely disable a person because they're just caught in that fear. They don't know what to put faith in. And then, for example, looking for IEDs in Iraq, I put my faith in God. Right? You to get to me, you got to go through God, my God, right? And so I didn't let the fear change how I was. I guess.
We had to train ourselves to look beyond fear, because we knew I'm sitting down inside that cup. They're trying to get me, but they got to go through the ship. And we had basically a lot of faith in what we built, what we had. We knew what kind of pressures it could withstand. And we surrounded our ship, our hull, come like this here. There was actually an inner hull, about 4 feet in, all the way down and around. Well, the exterior in that 4 feet, they were filled with some kind of a liquid, water, fuel oil, diesel fuel, so that was, if a torpedo hit, it had to penetrate all of that in order to get to us.
Mm-hmm.
See, so that was some of the faith that we had in how our ship was constructed. And we even had what they call voids. Nothing in them. Just the idea that
Only
there's
dead space.
3 feet of separation between this portion of the skin to this portion of the skin of the ship on the outside.
You talked about when you made rank and you handled the crew down there in engineering, and you had your secret liquor lockers, just say, and you said the skipper came down one time, and
Oh yeah, Captain Murray. I'll never forget that man. Yeah. We were all sitting under, it was just normal patrol. We were probably at standard speed, 15 knots. And we were, where the heck were we? We're in like Bermuda, and those islands over, I think that's where we were at that time. And all of us were on watch and we're supposed to be alert. We got to wait for orders to come. And we took our trash cans and turned them upside down and made them seats. And we were all sitting there, and the one guy is supposed to be standing. He had the fuel control metering valve in his hand. If the steam pressure dropped a little bit, he'd add a little more fuel. That was manual. Everything else was automatic except for that. And he had to stand there. A lot of times I've seen the guy stand there falling asleep. Anyway, we were all down there and we were talking and just having a good old time, having a cup of coffee. And I heard the machinist mate on the second deck above us, "Tension on deck." Oh, who the hell is coming down? So we all jumped up, turned around because he had to come one way to come into the quarters. He'd come down the flight, then he'd come all walking around and holy macros, Captain Murray. I say captain, any ship has all captains, but there's different ranks. And he's a full skipper, so he'd be the same thing as a colonel. Got the big 4.
yeah, the 06.
Yeah, he'd be Anyway, he'd come walking around. At ease, said carry on. So we're still standing there. He comes around and he looks, he sees the trash cans upside down. And there's another one that's sitting there right side up yet. He walks over there and flips it over and sits down. And he says, "Where's the coffee?" And we made a fresh pot of coffee every watch. That's 30 cups. And usually by the time we're almost ready to go, it's half gone. So we got to make a new pot for the next watch. So anyway, the one guy runs over and gets him a cup and gives him the coffee. He says, "Anything in it, sir?" "No, I drink coffee." And anyway, he started how we were doing. I says, "Everything's okay, it's up to par." He's just making chatter. But anyway, he got up and we had his cup of coffee. He got up and he says, "Well, a couple more minutes, you'll be off watch." Anyway, he told us, he says, "Carry on." And he basically just said, "Keep up the good work." And we were all sitting on trash cans. Shit cans, we call them. So he walks up and goes out of the compartment.
That's a good leader.
Yes. Yep. Then we had another one, Captain Koenig. He was going into Key West, Florida. And it's well marked, it's well to where the ship, our draft, how deep we go, and they had the channel. Because going into Key West, there's a lot of coral. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this coral is cut just for the purpose of the ship going through there. So a strange ship can't just run in on you, Well, Captain Koenig hit one of those ends. Like say, you're supposed to go like that. Mm-hmm. He went like this. He hit that and our prop knocked a good 2-foot section off. and that all that.
How big was your prop?
Yeah,
Anyways,
the prop was for about 9 feet.
like, was there just the one?
No, we had two.
You two, okay.
Yeah, two of them, and they were the same prop that the USS Forrestal, the big aircraft carrier, had. And anyway,
Is it 3 fin or 4 fin?
6.
6? Okay,
Yeah.
wow. Huge,
Yeah.
okay.
It was
That's
huge.
how much I know. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about like a fishing boat thing. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then, boy, it knocked off a big hunk. So when we got pulled into Key West, tied up with there, then the divers went down, and it was pretty well damaged. They had to cut it off. So they cut it off, brought it back out, and that thing was a big hunk of brass, all brass.
Was that your
So-
buddy?
Pardon?
Les?
No, it wasn't Les. No,
Okay.
no, Bodner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Les Bodner. Yeah, that's who it was. He was one of them.
And so were those the guys that ended up turning into like the Navy SEALs, the divers, or is that the whole separate? Because you have the Navy divers and then you have the UDT guys.
Yeah, UDT SEALs. Yeah, they're different.
Okay.
He was a what they call just a diver, but he does.
You had the suit.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, before he went down there, he just got a tank on and everything. He went down just to check to see. Then the work that he had to do, he had to come back up and put full suit on because he had a lot of work to do.
Was there a cage that's lowered to like a scaffold?
They made one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So were you when he hit it? Were you guys like what happened? Like what's that feel like?
We had to.
Like loud
reef.
noise? Just
Yeah,
everything
just
dripping.
like a loud bang, and then the whole ship just kind of, slid around like.
And you guys instantly knew you guys hit coral. Like it wasn't.
Oh yeah,
there was
we
no
knew
attack.
we hit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like when you hit a curve, like you knew you took the corner too tight.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So anyhow, from there, after you got that cut off, so it wouldn't break off and fly and put a hole in the ship. So we backed out and steamed out. We didn't go no more than 6 knots.
Because you had one screw, right?
Because we had to drag the other one. Yeah. And we went around all the way up to Philadelphia. We pulled in there. It just so happens that the USS Forrestal was supposed to have a refitting and put on new
So you got
screws.
their spare parts.
We got theirs, yeah.
Do the fins turn to get
No.
more draft?
No,
Okay.
they're,
They're static.
they're solid.
Okay.
And they're arched curves, and they're milled that way.
Is what I'm thinking? Is that a thing where the fins can change the draft of the propeller for more drag or?
I don't know which ship that would. It wasn't on the big ships, though. They're
Well, I'm
fixed.
thinking wind turbines. The blades change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Completely.
No, or from number 1 engine room to when the shaft went out. The shafts were 16 inches in diameter, and then they had the front one was so long it had 2 extra bearing points to carry the weight of the shaft, and then from number 2, it only had 3. It had two bearing points, and it was the same size. But that was just enough so that the one guy said, I don't know if he was telling the truth or not. He said when that number 1 engine turned the screw, he said you could see that thing turning, and before
It's like twisting the metal.
Yeah, it was twisting.
Well, that can happen to cars too.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you don't have the appropriate,
joy shaft.
right.
Yeah.
So you want to lead up to what happened right before you guys headed into Vietnam?
That there was in. It was in Norfolk, Virginia. And basically, the USS Norfolk was never attached to a squadron. They were what they call an independent. So, if an admiral wanted to, he said, "I want that ship. I'm going to Bermuda to buy all my beer or wine."
Get my cigars.
So we took them, yeah. And Then we went on Operation Unitas all the way around South America. We had the Admiral and his crew, his van, his car, everything loaded up. So we took him all the way around South America on Operation Unitas. That was to work with the Brazilian Navy, Argentine Navy, and then even the Peruvian, they had a Navy. And then there were maybe one or two ships, but it was called the Navy. And Chile, they had one. And we hit all those ports all the way around.
So they had their own shipyards? They were creating their own vessels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Panama, we went through there. I went through there 6 times, Panama Canal. And then, well, anyway, we left, went all the way around there. We pulled into Long Beach, California. And they took our after guns off. And they put them on the railroad car, took them. Then they brought some different missile launchers. They nailed them down, if you will. And then from there, we got orders. We were supposed to go to Midway first. And then Midway, all we were going for was to run interference for it. There were 2 aircraft carriers down there. And with the missile launchers and stuff, we were to run patrol and to run screening for the carriers. No other ship, and with our sonar on, and we can read them 5 miles away. They wanted that for the protection of those 2 carriers. And 9 out of 10 times we'd be right in the middle of them, pinging away, because they'd be, and you'd never see them closer than a mile together, because you get anything shorter than that, that's too close. They wouldn't be able to operate fully, or they could be easily hit. But anyway, we went up there, and then, we ran 2 patrols going north. And then they gave us orders to, I don't know why. I wouldn't attach to the topside, and I was just engineering. But they gave them orders that we had to leave the patrol, leave the screen, and then we were to fire those missiles on the targets they gave us.
Those are cruise missiles, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know what kind of missiles they were. But I know that those missiles that we were testing ended up on those aircraft carriers that were, remember, doing Iraq?
Mm-hmm.
Remember they were firing those missiles off of the aircraft carrier? They had 2 aircraft carriers, one of them sitting in in the Red Sea. Okay. And then when they had that operation, they bombarded Iraq with all those missiles. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones we had.
Oh.
Improved versions. They got the camera that's going down once we're.
Oh yeah, the cruise, right. Laser gun and all that.
I think when we had them, they didn't have the camera on them yet.
Because I took a picture of the cruise missile data sheet in the Air and Space Museum in Washington, and I sent it to you, and I showed you the date, and you said we were shooting those during Vietnam.
Yeah.
And the date was way after Vietnam. It was just on this data card. Yep. It's like, well, of course, the testing period is going to be a decade earlier, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then quite a few improvements made too. Guidance systems. When we were there, the Russians, they fired a missile. Electronic guys, they were good. They picked up signals coming from these trawlers. And the Russians said they were their fishing trips. But the trawlers were electronic surveillance, and they tried to take control of that missile while it was in the air with their control. However, they knew they were doing it, and they intercepted and blocked them. So,
Cold War still going on.
Yeah. So there's, a lot of people are worried about. They said China is making these hypersonic missiles. They can be here before we even know it. I tell them, don't worry about it. We got guys sitting on the ship out there watching that. We got a nuclear submarine that pop up, take that thing out of the air before we even know it's been fired. You know,
It's
no, we
kind of scary to think about everything we don't know about.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know what you don't know.
You know, we pinged a few submarines, especially out there. You know, and then we had to notify the carriers, you know, where they were at, how fast they were going, how deep they were down, which way they were headed. You know, of course they knew it. They knew it too. But know that our armaments today are far more superior than a lot of people think of. This Korean that keeps firing these missiles, what does President Trump call him?
Little Rocket Man?
Yeah, Little Rocket Man. Yeah, he doesn't realize it, but he's just showing us the stupidity of what he has is not sufficient. We can take them out.
Kid playing a sandbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just letting them play.
Yep, we can take them out and nothing fly.
What would you say about the young men and women wanting to join the Navy today?
Well, first of all, I'll tell them, what do you really want to do?
Because you got to see the world except Australia, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one place I wanted to go. And then after I got discharged from it and transferred to another ship, they sent her down there.
Yeah.
I sent over down there, yeah.
Oh, I want to hear the story how you met Bonnie. That's
Oh, I couldn't run fast enough. No. No, I met Bonnie at laundromat. She worked at the laundromat, and I took my uniforms there and have them cleaned and all that, especially my dress uniform. I had a heck of a time keeping the pipings clean. So anyway, I met her and I then talked to her, you know, just chat. Then a couple of times, I've done that for I don't know how long, but that's where I used to take my uniforms and she'd have them cleaned in the back and all that, and I'd pick them up. Then one day I just asked her for a date. That's all it was.
and
57 years later, you're still there.
and she legitimately thought you were Italian because of your hairdo and your
Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of my color.
Yeah.
She thought I was an Italian. So,
And then tell us when you got out of the Navy, what was the deciding factor?
yeah, I
So you
well, to
completed the
begin with,
first-
that I was still on board the USS Sierra, and I got ordered to get on a tin can. Well, by then I and Bonnie did the business of making a little baby girl.
Yeah, Loretta.
Yeah, Tinky. But anyway, I got these orders and said it was going to go for 18 months in Vietnam. And that's when I told my personnel officer, I went up there and I told him, I says, just cut me some orders to be discharged. And he said, you're discharged? Why? He says, and anyway, he made me some promises and all that. Different rank, you know, and I could become a W1 and nothing flat. Oh, wow. Because I already passed the chief's tests. You know. And I told him, no. I said, I got a baby coming. I said, I go on that cruise. She'll be 2 years old by the time I got back here. Oh, we can change them orders. We can change them today. I said, yeah, and tomorrow I'll still be going over there. But the commander and I we got along pretty good. We knew each other. And I was,
What rank's the commander?
let's see, commander is, let's see,
04?
1, 2, 3, yeah, 4, yeah. Anyway, he tried to talk me into it. I said, no, I'm heading out. So he cut me my orders. So, and I was still in the Navy. I had to come back and report to the ship every morning, you know. But anyway, Dad did that for a few weeks. You know, it's unusual. But like I said, I and the commander knew each other. So anyway, he didn't try to change my orders, just left them the way they were. But what he did do is tell him that I was discharged from the Navy.
Yeah, your ETS date. Or
Yeah, DD 214. You know, so I got two of them. So anyway, I got off the ship and I and Bonnie made home. You know, I worked there in Norfolk for a couple of years as a autoclave operator for the Southern Block and Pipe in country. Yeah.
Oh, what was the attitude like coming home from Vietnam? You said there were signs saying sailors and dogs stay off the line.
That was when we came back and come into the California port. When we pulled in, there was the pier was just plumb full of people. And we knew it couldn't have been our dependents because our dependents were in Norfolk, Virginia. And they had signs and everything else. And next thing you know, we had Long Beach. That's what we're trying to think. We were pulling Long Beach. Next thing you knew, we had rotten eggs and, you know, fruit. They were throwing out baby killer was the signs. Well, anyway, the skipper didn't stay there all that long. He was willing to get back to Norfolk. So anyway, we had to unload those missiles. So we tied up, and the ship workers come on board and took the missiles off, put our guns back on, then we took off. We got into Norfolk, Virginia, and we pulled into DNS piers. Same thing. All them people were out there. This time we had some dependents out there, you know. It was the same thing. And our guys were getting attacked even when we took Liberty. We were getting beat up. And the skipper of the ship and the base commander is Admiral something, I forget what it is. He gave us what we call dungaree liberty. We never wear dungarees off the ship. But the commander, Admiral, ordered dungaree liberty for all ship personnel. So in other words, we wouldn't ruin our whites and our blues by defending ourselves. I had a 63 Ford convertible, and your mom like that. She used to drive that thing, and it had the power steering, and she'd end up going all over the road. Anyway, I took that and driving down the street, was going home, and there was a sign: "Sailors and dogs, stay off the grass." So they had hedges, maybe 2 feet up in the air, and about 3 feet wide. You know, those hedges along the sidewalk. But when I got through with those hedges, and that sign out there in the middle of their lawn with my car, the funny part of it is nobody chased me. I went in there, run through those hedges, and just spun around. Just raised heck with their daggone lawn and their hedges. And I went home. So I kept sailors and dogs off the lawn.
Yeah, that's.
And that's what disappointed me more than anything else. Besides, for serving my country, that I came home to that sort of thing. You know, it shouldn't have been. You know, like when you came back from Iraq, it was different. But if you get a chance, look at some of those clips and some of those cameras that were at the airports and at the bases and stuff like that, and they're taking pictures of guys coming home. Who's there greeting him? Vietnam vet.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were baby killers. But those baby killers turned out to bring our troops home. Yeah. If anything disappoints me more than anything else is that
And, so you served the same time as Roy.
Mhm.
Roy was running missions
Yeah.
on a gunboat,
Yeah.
up and down, dropping off Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, he got sprayed with Agent Orange, bad. And nobody in his family had diabetes except him. And it went from bad to worse and nothing flat. And he ended up in the VA home, and that's where he passed.
Yeah, I remember him having the insulin needles.
Yeah.
What was his what was his rank or rate?
He was a boatswain mate, chief petty officer. Yeah. He was at E7.
And then his son Timmy
Timmy,
retired.
he's retired from now. He's an E9, full-fledged E9. So, with 30 years, he served his country good too.
And then I don't know how to, support or think about my kids joining, but when I told you guys I was deploying or I volunteered, I was at the dinner table. You gave me the talk because this was after my senior year. You said, "All right, you're 18, you're a man, like you need to make your own decision." And then I was getting ready to go to Bible college, and then the unit needed 50 volunteers. I had a moment that I didn't tell anybody about, but I just prayed about it, and then I submitted the paperwork, got it approved. Didn't talk to you guys. I waited till it was approved, sat at the dinner table, and I didn't think about Mom. I didn't think about how, Pappy or Dad was World War II, Marines, her brother, Vietnam. I didn't think about all the men she knew served in the military, and now her youngest is volunteers to go to war. And then I tell you guys, I sit at the table. You were sitting over here, Mom was there, and I said, well, I volunteered with Minot, and we're getting ready to go to Iraq. And when you guys said, I think it was Mom, she's like, oh, that's funny. She's like, oh, you're joking. I'm like, I'm not joking. And then you don't say anything. Or no, what happened? I think you said, well, didn't you want to talk to us first? And I shouldn't have said it, but it was like, well, I'm talking to you now. And that was not the right, that's whoa, that was not the right thing to say. And you put down your utensils, and then you wiped your mouth with a napkin, got up, and Mom was just shooting lasers through me. And I'm just staring at my food, like, I messed up. And but yeah, it's I didn't think about her position or you guys' position, but I prayed about it, and I came home. The Vietnam vets. There's a guy I knew who saw a vet out somewhere, he had a hat on, and he simply just reached out his hand and said, "Hey, thank you, welcome home." Mm-hmm. And he said, he's already crying. He's like, no one's ever said that yet. Mm-hmm. Welcome home.
Yeah. I was just going to tell you, I've never gotten a welcome home. East Coast or West Coast. But I got greeted in a way that nobody should. Nobody should. But I talked to a few guys that went through the same things I did. But they said, oh, they don't understand. It's just like what Jesus says, God forgive them, for they know not what they do. Amen.
I think that concludes our episode.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the VFW Post 756. Thank you. Thanks to all the Vietnam vets out there. And see you on the next podcast.